Have you ever stopped to think why, even when surrounded by so many forms of pleasure, you still feel empty? Why, despite having access to everything that promises happiness, from cutting-edge technology to the simplest comforts of modern life, are we tormented by anxiety, dissatisfaction, and even a feeling of invisible slavery? The relentless pursuit of pleasure, which should liberate us, is imprisoning us. Aldous Huxley, in Brave New World, warned of a future where we would become volunteers of our own servitude, seduced by entertainment, distractions, and artificial pleasures. What if, without realizing it, we are already living this reality? Pleasure as a tool of control, the legacy of Aldous Huxley. Imagine a gilded cage. You're inside it, but it's comfortable, filled with soft cushions, abundant food, and endless entertainment. You barely even realize you're trapped. Why? Because everything seems too good to question. This is the essence of Aldous Huxley's vision of modernity. We are enslaved not by pain or fear, but by the irresistible seduction of pleasure. In the book Brave New World, Huxley describes a society in which control is exercised not by oppression, but by excessive comfort. People are pacified by artificial pleasures such as soma, a drug that eliminates pain and amplifies pleasure, making harsh reality unnecessary. And while everyone is busy enjoying their distractions, the system operates without question. Sound familiar? In our reality, soma can be found in many forms: social networks that flood our brains with dopamine, streaming series that turn hours into minutes, and incessant consumption that convinces us the next purchase will finally make us happy. Just as Huxley predicted, pleasure has become a tool of control, but disguised as freedom. The greatest danger of pleasure is not its presence, but its ability to extinguish the desire for something greater. When we are immersed in entertainment, easy consumption, and the search for instant gratification, we lose the ability to reflect on our existence. Are we really choosing what we want, or are we being conditioned to want what is offered to us? Huxley holds a mirror up to us. What if we are numb to reality? When was the last time you had a moment of silence without searching for the next distraction? Could it be that the fear of facing our own thoughts makes us complicit in our own servitude? Think about the people who spend hours scrolling through their phones, searching for the next video, the next meme, the next treat. It's no coincidence that platforms are designed to capture your attention and keep you distracted. The more we consume, the less we question. Philosopher Byung-Chul Han warns that we live in a fatigue society, where we have become so saturated with stimuli that our ability to resist and think critically is obliterated. And the most insidious thing is that we like it. We are contented slaves, believing that freedom only means unlimited access to pleasure, when in fact we are sacrificing our autonomy. But is pleasure really the enemy, or is it the way we indulge in it? To understand this dynamic, we need to look at what's happening inside us, our brains and souls. How does pleasure not only control, but also reconfigure our expectations, leading us into an endless cycle of insatiable pursuit? To dive deeper, we need to explore what underpins this relationship between pleasure and control: neuroscience. After all, pleasure isn't just a philosophical question, it's built into the way our brains operate. What happens when our quest for the next reward becomes insatiable? The next step is to understand the vicious cycle of dopamine, the vicious cycle of pleasure, neuroscience, and the danger of dopamine. Imagine a hamster on a wheel. He runs and runs and runs, but never gets anywhere. Now imagine that, at the center of this wheel, is the promise of something irresistible, a reward that he believes will satisfy him once and for all. That hamster could be you, me, or any of us. And at the center of this wheel is dopamine, the neurotransmitter that drives our desire for pleasure. Contrary to popular belief, dopamine is not responsible for making us feel pleasure. It is, in fact, the engine of desire. When you feel that excitement at the thought of eating dessert, watching your favorite series, or opening a social media app, it is dopamine pulling the strings. It motivates us to act, to seek. But here's the trick. The pleasure it promises is always greater before we reach the reward. And that's why the search never seems to end. We're all chasing a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow that keeps getting further away. This is what happens when we spend hours on social media, clicking compulsively, hoping to find that one perfect video that will bring us lasting satisfaction. Or when we binge eat an entire bag of chips, even after realizing the first handful was the tastiest. Dopamine makes us want more but never leaves us completely satisfied. This mechanism was essential to our survival in the past. It motivated us to seek out food, shelter, and mates, ensuring that we were always on the move. But in the modern world, this system has been hijacked by artificial stimuli, social media, mobile games, ultra-processed foods. They're all designed to hack our dopamine system, creating a vicious cycle in which we seek out ever more rewards that ultimately have no real value. Think about it. Why are you never completely satisfied? Why is it that as soon as you achieve a goal or enjoy something pleasurable, you're already thinking about the next one? That's dopamine and control. We're programmed to seek but never to stay. And this chronic dissatisfaction is what fuels the greatest addictions of modernity. Pleasure without purpose is emptiness disguised as satisfaction. As author Yuval Noah Harari points out, the relentless pursuit of pleasure can become a kind of slavery, biological. The more stimuli you consume, the more your brain adapts, and the less it responds to the same levels of dopamine. This means you need larger doses to feel the same effect, a phenomenon called tolerance. This happens with drugs, but also with technology, consumption, and even our relationships. And here comes the provocative question. Are we really in control of what we desire, or are we being manipulated by our own brains? When you automatically reach for your phone to take a look, or open the refrigerator when you're not hungry, who is in control? The answer to this question is disturbing but necessary. The dopamine cycle keeps us distracted, always looking for the next hit and taking us away from what really matters, what gives our lives meaning. If we keep running on this wheel, what will we leave behind? To escape this trap, we need to look beyond biology and understand how society amplifies and exploits this cycle of relentless pursuit. Modern distractions didn't come about by accident. In the next section, we'll explore how entertainment society uses pleasure to keep us in check and why this can be just as dangerous as past forms of oppression. Entertainment society, when distraction becomes slavery. Imagine being in a huge amusement park full of bright lights, loud music, and fascinating attractions. You're so distracted by the show that you don't notice the exit doors are locked. This is the portrait of our entertainment society, a place where we are surrounded by incessant stimuli that keep us busy but increasingly distant from our freedoms and ourselves. Neil Postman, in his book Amusing Ourselves to Death, argues that we live in an age where entertainment not only dominates culture, it defines it. It is no longer enough for something to be informative, relevant, or true. It needs, above all, to entertain. This turns everything from politics to education into a spectacle, but at what cost? Distraction is the new oppression. In the past, control was imposed by authoritarian regimes that censored information and restricted freedoms. Today we live in what Byung-Chul Han calls transparency society, where information is unlimited, but no one has the time or focus to digest what really matters. The excess of options paralyzes us, while the superficiality of digital media keeps us trapped in an endless cycle of clicks, likes, and shares. Think about it. How much time do you spend consuming entertainment every day? From short videos and memes to binge-watching TV shows, the amount of content available is practically endless. But are we really choosing what to consume, or are we just reacting to what is served to us? Carefully designed algorithms know exactly how to capture our attention, delivering controlled doses of pleasure to keep us hooked. What you do with your time defines who you are. When we spend hours on entertainment platforms, we sacrifice the opportunity to reflect, learn deeply, or build something meaningful. And the most worrying thing is that we don't even realize it. When one distraction ends, we immediately look for another, without even questioning why. Am I filling every minute of my day with external stimuli? What am I running away from? A clear example is the phenomenon of social media. Not only do they distract us, they also shape our perception of reality. News becomes sensationalist clickbait. Deep conversations are reduced to 280 character posts, and personal validation is measured by numbers like likes and followers. The entertainment society turns everything into a spectacle, including our lives. We are the audience of our own lives, but who is writing the script? Distraction is not harmless. It prevents us from confronting deeper questions about our existence, our society, and our purpose. That's why Huxley was right. By entertaining ourselves to the point of exhaustion, we become easily manipulated. If we are constantly distracted, who questions the systems of power? Who seeks real change? Distraction diverts us from what matters, making us prisoners of a world of appearances. And here's the most important question. What do we lose by giving ourselves completely to entertainment? Couldn't the time we spend watching other people's content be used to create something of our own, something that actually makes sense? To break the cycle of distraction, we need to go beyond criticizing the system and look within ourselves. After all, what's at stake is not just external control, but also our ability to find purpose and meaning. In the next section, we'll explore how the relentless pursuit of pleasure affects our sense of autonomy and purpose, and why it keeps us from true fulfillment. The impact on purpose and human autonomy. Imagine that your life is a book. Each page represents choices, experiences, and achievements that define who you are. Now ask yourself, who is writing this book? You or the distractions, expectations, and pleasures imposed by a society that constantly distracts you from what really matters? In our relentless pursuit of immediate pleasure, we often fail to write deep and meaningful chapters in our lives. Instead, we become passive readers of a script written by others, whether by social media, advertising, or the dictates of a culture that idolizes the superficial and neglects the essential. The result? We lose our sense of purpose, and with it, our autonomy. What gives meaning to life is not momentary pleasure, but lasting purpose. Aristotle called this eudaimonia, a life well lived, guided by the effort to achieve excellence and meaning. But in a world saturated with instant pleasures, the idea of working for something bigger, why plant a tree that will take years to grow when you can buy an instantly beautiful artificial plant? And here's the dilemma. When everything is easy and fast, nothing really matters. Immediate pleasure makes us trade long-term dreams for fleeting gratifications. A practical example, think about New Year's resolutions. How many times have we given up on something important, learning a new skill, taking care of our bodies, investing in deep relationships, because it's easier to give in to the comfort of a couch and a screen? The relentless pursuit of comfort is the greatest enemy of growth. Viktor Frankl, in his classic Man's Search for Meaning, argued that human beings cannot live just to avoid suffering. They need to find meaning, even in the midst of hardship. When pleasure becomes the main goal, we forget that it is effort, not ease, that transforms us. Without purpose, life becomes an empty cycle, where we are always searching for something, but never finding enough to fill the void. The impact isn't just individual. How can we build better societies, solve global problems, or leave a meaningful legacy if we're stuck in the short term? Autonomy, our ability to make informed choices that align with our values and goals, is undermined by constant distraction. And when we give up autonomy, we become prisoners of systems that profit from our inaction. Are we living or just being lived? This is the crucial question. When was the last time you made a truly meaningful decision in your life? Not just an impulsive one, but a deliberate choice based on who you want to be. Too often, too much stimulation prevents us from thinking about these questions. We are so busy reacting that we forget to act with purpose. Unlike pleasure, purpose requires us to look inward, face our fears, and dedicate ourselves to something greater than ourselves. But how can we find that purpose in a world that offers us endless distractions to avoid it? The answer may lie in reclaiming our inner freedom and redefining our relationship with pleasure. To do this, we need to understand how to break out of the cycle of immediacy and cultivate a life of greater awareness and intention. In the next section, we will explore how we can escape this prison of pleasure and regain the true freedom to live with meaning. How to escape the prison of pleasure and regain freedom. Imagine being trapped in a maze. Around every corner there's a promise of something irresistible, a delicious meal, a bright screen, a moment of instant validation. You race from one promise to the next, but you never find your way out. This is the scenario many of us live in, trapped in a cycle of purposeless pleasure. But unlike a physical maze, the way out of this prison is within us. Freedom is not doing whatever you want, but choosing what really matters. Regaining this freedom requires a difficult step, getting out of autopilot mode and looking at our choices honestly. Are we living intentionally, or are we simply reacting to the stimuli around us? To escape the prison of pleasure, we need to understand that freedom does not mean giving in to every impulse, but having the discipline to say no to what distracts us from what is essential. Embrace discomfort as part of the journey. We live in a society that idolizes comfort, but as the philosopher Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow." Discomfort, far from being something to be avoided, is a bridge to growth. Think of an athlete training for a marathon or a student dedicating years of study. Discomfort is the price we pay to achieve something significant. Try this in your daily life. Disconnect from social media for a few hours. Say no to immediate pleasures and allow yourself to experience boredom. Boredom is actually a fertile space for creativity and introspection. When was the last time you were alone with your thoughts, without seeking an immediate distraction? Cultivate purpose in small actions. Many people believe that purpose is something grand, an epic, world-changing mission. But in reality, it can be found in the small, everyday choices. As writer Annie Dillard put it, "How we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives." Identify the areas where you're trading meaning for pleasure. This could be as simple as replacing a night of binge-watching with an hour of a creative hobby, a deep book, or a meaningful conversation with someone you love. Every small, intentional action is a step out of the prison. Redefine your relationship with pleasure. Pleasure itself is not the enemy. The problem is when it becomes the only goal. The key is to balance pleasure with deeper values and goals. Ask yourself, Is this moment of pleasure contributing to the kind of life I want to build, or is it just distracting me? For example, instead of passively consuming the content that appears on your screen, actively choose what you want to consume. Turn pleasure into a tool, not a master. A delicious meal can be enjoyed more deeply when it is prepared with care. A timeout becomes more meaningful when it comes after dedicated effort. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is a powerful way to regain your inner freedom. As Thich Nhat Hanh taught, peace is in every step. Mindfulness teaches us to be present in the moment rather than being swept away by automatic impulses. Try this. Before you open your phone in the morning, take 5 minutes to breathe deeply and notice how you feel. Ask yourself, what do I really want for this day? These small, mindful pauses can be the beginning of a transformation. Surround yourself with people and experiences that inspire. Ultimately, no one makes it through life alone. The people you share your life with have a profound impact on your habits and worldview. Seek out communities and connections that value purpose, authenticity, and growth, rather than superficiality and distraction. When you surround yourself with inspiration, you begin to realize that there is so much more to life than the cycle of immediate pleasure. After all, the most meaningful moments in life are rarely the ones in which you're simply comfortable. They're those where you've deeply connected with something bigger, be it a cause, a relationship, or a dream. Freedom begins where immediacy ends. Regaining freedom and purpose requires effort, but it is an effort that is worth every step. However, this journey can only be sustained if we understand that pleasure does not need to be eliminated, but rather redefined. The question now is, how can we transform pleasure into an ally rather than a tyrant? The next step is to reflect on how to build a balanced relationship between what we desire and what we truly need to live with meaning. Let's explore this together. True freedom is not in doing everything we want, but in consciously choosing what really matters. As Viktor Frankl said, when we can no longer change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Now it's your turn. Question, choose, and redefine pleasure in your life. If anything in this text made you think, don't keep it to yourself. Share your thoughts in the comments and maybe inspire others to get off autopilot too. Let's continue this conversation together. Your next choice could be the first step toward a purposeful life.